Um, Good evening and welcome back. We're talking about corruption in leadership. My name is Brother Lewis, and we've been making a few videos talking about that particular subject, and primarily regarding an organization that I'm a part of, the United House of Prayer for All People. If you are watching and you're not affiliated with or a part of this organization, no matter where you are around the world, if you find this information to be familiar, seem familiar, what have you, then you may want to begin to ask questions and consider seeing what's going on. I'm going to be touching on tonight in this video something that all of our delegates want to be aware of. We have 3 weeks from now. We're going to be attending the General Assembly. This meeting is held once a week, once a year, and it is so that we have representation from each of our congregations to come into that meeting to have discussions about the Constitution. That is the only time and that is the only meeting where the Constitution can be discussed and things done in order to amend, revise, or change it in any way, shape, or form. We have procedures and policy in place that dictates how to go about doing that. If those procedures are not followed, then the end result is that whatever the outcome was for that meeting, it becomes null and void. There are a litany of court documents, transcripts. For those of you who are familiar with how the process works in the court of law, judges, lawyers, groups, many times they take the judgment that was rendered in a particular case, and they will use that judgment and they will apply the ruling as well as the interpretation of the law within that ruling in order to perhaps decide how to conduct a different case. Many of you may be familiar with one of the biggest cases in this particular country, Roe versus Wade. This is why you hear a court case reference, because in that case, they're going to look at how it was determined. And the likelihood is, if you have another case that you're going to try, that they're going to judge that case similar to this one. This very, very important court case, this hearing, so many witnesses, so much information. And depending on how the law was interpreted, if you have a similar case coming up, then you have an idea of what the outcome of that case might be. It's not guaranteed, but it might be. And the only thing that may determine a different outcome is depending on how you present your case and the evidence that you have to support your claims and how you present your case. Anyway, that said, while we're preparing over the next 3 weeks to go to the General Assembly, it is imperative that every single delegate understands this information that I'm about to give you now. Here is a caption how violating company bylaws can lead to litigation. Okay. Now, that can be for anybody, anyone in the company. Whether you are the CEO, whether you are the chairman of the board, whether you are a board member, whether you're an officer of the company, it doesn't matter. If you at any point in time represent a company, nonprofit or private, for profit, and things are not followed according to your policies and your procedures, then you have a huge problem on your hands in the event that it is discovered. Now, if you are a delegate, then I have also made other videos to allow everybody to understand that you are the equivalent of a board member. You have the opportunity to go into a meeting and find out privileged information, discuss different things, and weigh in on those things. You have the opportunity to help shape the course of how certain things are going to be done. Here, within this organization, the only thing that is talked about in the General Assembly, according to what's in the Constitution, is the Constitution. That's the only thing. I haven't said it as of yet, but even that can be a problem. To have the General Assembly being called and only talk about the Constitution, that can be a very, very, very big problem. But I haven't talked about that yet. And it can be a very big problem because the board of directors, they come together to make all of the important decisions. They come together to talk about the things that are going to set up the agenda for the CEO. The board of directors set up the agenda, the objectives, the program goals, and the CEO's job, their job is to actually carry it out. Their job is to manage the individuals that's going to work towards those objectives to help bring that vision into fruition. You have here in our organization where the people coming together to talk about only one thing, and that's the Constitution. And again, that could be a very big problem. It could be a very big problem because they could be talking about other things. However, this is done to control what the people are going to talk about, rather than talk about the various aspects of the organization and how it should be maintained or how it should be conducted or how it should be presented or tackled or operated. All those things are discussed by the board of directors and other organizations. Ours is limited to Constitution. Now, that one area, even though the one area for the meeting that we have is focused around the Constitution, the people are still kept outside of the know. The people are still kept outside of the loop. The people are still kept in the dark about every important matter, for the most part, regarding the General Assembly and the Constitution. So tonight, I want to go over a few things so that the delegates will understand why you need to know everything about the Constitution and the process going into the General Assembly. So let me share this with you. Okay. You can take a snapshot of this. And I'm going to read it. Legal responsibilities of members of the boards of nonprofit associations. These are the legal responsibilities of every member of the board of nonprofit associations. Overview. A board member acts as a part of a board, and that board member directs. The board member acts as a part of a board. Your responsibility is to serve on that board. Your responsibility is to direct. Direct is to tell how things are going to go, what people are going to do. Your job is to assist in directing, but does not perform the association's duties. Their job is to be a part of the board and direct, but they don't perform the association's duties. You don't do what's necessary to get the job done. Your job as a board member is to come together and to direct. Everyone, I've said it before, I'll say it again, coming to the General Assembly, everyone is on equal ground. You have the same amount of power in your hand. Everyone there. Every single member. Individuals who serve on the board of an association. Let me go back. I missed a sentence. The board member acts on behalf of one or more constituencies. That means you are not there for yourself. You are there for the congregation that you represent. The pastors are also not supposed to be there for themselves. The pastors are supposed to be there for the congregations that they're the pastors of. This is putting a whole nother light on things now, isn't it? Our pastors haven't been actively doing things in the General Assembly, looking out for the best interest of the people. Our pastors have been doing things to go along with whatever one person wants, and that's the CEO. But by law, every board member of which a pastor is, as they fulfill that role in the General Assembly. This is why I said before, I say it again. There is no general counsel in a General Assembly. The General Counsel has absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with the General Assembly. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. But because of the things that have been taking place and transpiring, the General Counsel has been put out in the front in order to intimidate and to try to give the impression that they're, number one, supposed to be there, and number two, they're there to keep order, so to speak. but it is all not legal. Look at this going further. Individuals who serve on the board of an association, however, often perform several other roles. So you can be a board member, be a pastor. You can be a board member and be assistant pastor. You can be a board member and be a general secretary. You can be a board member and be a choir director. You can be a board member and be a musician. You can serve in other roles, but when you serve as a board member / General Assembly Delegate, your job is to represent the people that put you there. A board member may be the head of an academic program, the director of a private clinic, or a teacher in the public schools. Just like I said, anything. The purpose of this presentation is to help sort out the responsibilities of serving on a board from the responsibility accompanying different roles. The job of the General Assembly Delegate has nothing whatsoever to do with any other role in the organization. No other role in the organization has anything whatsoever to do with your role in the General Assembly. Now, we've been having an issue with people hearing what's being said. I want you to pay very, very close attention. Whatever your role is outside of the General Assembly, whatever your role is outside of that board meeting, that role is to remain separate and completely uninvolved with your role in the General Assembly / board meeting. So if you're a pastor, when you come to the General Assembly, you are a pastor of the congregation. However, in the General Assembly, you're not a pastor. In the General Assembly, you are a board member. And your job is to represent the members that you're pastor of. You're not a pastor there, but you being a pastor or having a credentials of a minister is what put you in that seat according to the rule that they're going by today, which is, according to our Constitution, unlawful. Elders were required to be in the General Assembly. And because they are elders and they have a letter stipulating that they are an elder, then the law says that they're supposed to be a part of the General Assembly because they're elders over the people. However, I've said before that they have not been operating according to the letter of the law as indicated in the Constitution. And we all know this. So another problem is that the elders have been ousted for several years now, and the individuals that have been a part of that have not been brought forward and held accountable. Now, as we go further, I'm going to show you the grave mistake of not complying with the laws of the organization. A clear understanding of for what a board member is responsible and to whom will not only help avoid lawsuits and liability, but it will make the board function more effectively. Say this again. A clear understanding, to understand clearly for what a board member is responsible. In other words, to know exactly what you're responsible for and who the people are that you represent will not only avoid lawsuits and you being held accountable for things that didn't go the right way. Not only will it benefit you in those two regards, but it'll also help the board, or in this case, the General Assembly, function more effectively. Now, let me go back. I'm going to go down a little, and I'm going to touch on an example, okay, to show the importance of understanding what it is that you're supposed to be doing, as well as to understand the law. Let me read this part. Executive compensation example. Executive compensation. This is the pay that's going to go to the executive. The salary that's going to go to the executive. The board of the United Way of America paid the president of the nonprofit a $500,000 salary, and they gave him benefits. United Way. The president also used the nonprofit's funds, not their own funds, to pay for luxury vacations, apartments, and gambling trips. Ultimately, the president was convicted on felony counts of looting the nonprofit to subsidize his lifestyle, and they were sentenced to jail time. I've been saying that there's a lot of stuff going on. And I've been saying that we need to get this stuff together. Individuals can either clean it up themselves, or the members can come together and clean it up. But clean it up, it must be done. Previously, times past, the only action the IRS could take would be to revoke the tax-exempt status of the charitable organization. Previously, that's all they could do in the past, is just take away their tax exemption. As this was impractical, it wasn't really a penalty, Congress enacted a new law that allows the IRS to fine, F-I-N-E, fine, nonprofit executives of charities who receive excessive salaries and benefits, as well as the nonprofit board members of such charities who approve the arrangements. Listen to this again carefully. Not only can the IRS initiate a fine to the executive of the nonprofit who receives excessive amounts of money as pay and benefits, but the board members, those individuals coming together to make up the board, they themselves can be held liable or accountable by approving those arrangements. In other words, if you don't raise a concern about things that you know are wrong and it gets found out that that thing is wrong and the authorities come into the knowledge of it, when they penalize the individual that's doing that wrong, the law now allows that they can penalize the individuals that were in positions who approved it. So here's your problem. Whenever people are in the General Assembly and they just raise their hand and go along with anything, and they really don't understand what they're agreeing to, then if that action becomes a problem for someone and it goes to be reported, and it is discovered that, yes, this action is an illegal act, then the individual that benefited from that, not only will they be subject to penalties, fines, and also it could include jail, depending on the seriousness of the matter, but the individuals who approved it, who went along with it, they too can become liable. It's beneficial. It's best to learn about these laws. Let me go into another section. Setting compensation for top executives of nonprofits is one of the most important functions of the board. Setting compensations for top executives of nonprofits is one of the most important functions of a board. One of the most important responsibilities. One of the most important obligations. Question: why does our General Assembly only talk about the Constitution and nothing else? Because they've been tricked into believing that they don't have any say-so over nothing else. The General Assembly should be involved in those major decisions, if not every decision. And we have been held to discuss only one thing, the Constitution. Setting the compensation for top executives of nonprofits is one of the most important functions of the board. Executive compensation should be related to performance measured by stated goals and based on comparisons of similar executives in other nonprofits. Right here. In other words, the General Assembly is supposed to be the ones who discuss and take a vote on setting a salary as well as a benefit package for the chief executive officer. I wonder if you all heard what I just said. The General Assembly should be the people responsible for talking about, holding discussion for the salary or compensation and the benefit package of the chief executive officer. In other words, the General Assembly should be the ones talking about how a bishop in this organization is going to be paid, how much they're going to get paid, and what their benefit package is. All of those things should be coming from the General Assembly. How did we get to a place where the General Assembly has no say-so whatsoever, does not know what the CEO is being compensated, and they have no idea whatsoever what the benefit package is for the CEO/bishop of the organization? How did we get here? Let me continue. Steps to help satisfy. There's a thing called standards of care. Standards of care. There's the board of directors are supposed to care not about self-interest. They're not supposed to care about the officer's self-interest. CEO, the chairman of the board, any officer that's over the organization in any capacity, the board of directors or the General Assembly is not supposed to be concerned about what they want. They can consider what they want as they evaluate and discuss what they're going to do, but their job is to direct. Their job is to make the decisions that's going to stick. Their job is to dictate, not to sit back and take orders. So, that said, a board can preserve the benefits of the business judgment rule by following the general principles set forth below. Attend meetings. Board members should know, General Assembly delegates should know how General Assemblies are scheduled. They should know how they're conducted, and they should know how they're documented. Not only should the General Assembly board member, General Assembly delegate attend the General Assemblies, but the delegate should regularly attend any committee meetings on committees where the board member serves. They should attend all of those meetings where that particular board member serves. If there's other meetings taking place revolving the issues or the business that may be discussed during the General Assembly or the board meeting, well, then board meetings and any other committee, when they have meetings, all of those things should be operating similar, if not the same. Individuals that's on the board meeting, some of those individuals should be in the committee meeting, if not all. At least to have common knowledge of the committee, how it's run, what it's for, its purpose, and what's going on, so that you're in the know. Electronic mechanisms may be used so that board members may participate electronically, even if they may not participate through their physical presence. This is law. You can attend via electronics. If there's a satellite connection, Zoom conference call, as long as, even by phone, people have had conference meetings on speakerphone. while people are all over the country, but they're on the phone together. This is now allowed. Courts are not sympathetic. Courts are not sympathetic to board members who argue as a defense that they were not aware of a particular issue or did not participate in a particular action because of repeated failure to attend meetings. Courts will not, they don't like for you to not be aware as a General Assembly delegate of what's going on, what's taking place. You're not prepared for the General Assembly that you're about to sit in on. That is frowned upon, because how can you represent the people called your constituents who put you there in that meeting? How can you represent them if you have no idea what's going on? You cannot lawfully and truly, effectively represent them if you have no idea what's going on. Because you don't know whether or not your vote is going to help or hurt that group of people. Many times, the vote has done a lot of damage to that group of people. And people voting anyway, left and right, because they have no idea what the information is on the floor. They don't know how it's going to impact the organization. They don't know what it's going to do to the organization. They have no understanding of how that particular thing is going to be reflected outside of the organization. And this is why I brought up a while back a court hearing where in the court hearing they quoted a section of the Constitution. And it's now in the court transcript. It says what the Constitution actually says. There's a couple of paragraphs where whoever was representing the house of prayer, they pulled that out, they presented it to the court, and the expectation was for the court to abide by and enforce what was written in that Constitution. Now, if you as a delegate have no clue what this information is in front of you, if you don't understand this information in front of you, if you don't know what it's going to do to the organization, if you don't know why this information is being pushed through the General Assembly, even though it was not discussed in the local houses, if you're not aware, in fact, let's talk about that. If you know that you're looking at something that your congregation never even talked about, that they never even looked at, but you're looking at it, then you should know that at that moment, an illegal act is taking place in that meeting. And whatever happens, this is why I've been saying the Constitution of last year, 2024, the Constitution of 2023, and the Constitution of 2022 are null and void. There are issues within the 2009 Constitution, making it also null and void. However, that's the earliest Constitution that I have. Now that I think about it, there may be a 2006, but 2002. But because that's the earliest version, then we get to refer to that. Even though looking at the wording, it's easy to see and detect a law or an amendment that was placed there and not voted on by the people. Anytime you see something in the law that was not benefiting the members, but it's benefiting the CEO, the bishop, or the general counsel, or the senior minister, when it's benefiting somebody up there, and many times giving them the authority to do something or the power to do something, like you heard about the credentials committee. You're giving them authority to do something, and that was just done in one of these unlawful constitutions. It was printed in there that the credentials committee now has the authority to reject people at the door. Instead, prior to that constitution, that was 2022, prior to that constitution in 2009, that constitution says they don't have no authority to reject anyone. Their job is to answer questions pertaining to any confusion regarding somebody's attendance when it comes to their credentials. And even as the credentials committee has been there, then we can easily see that they have also not been doing what they're obligated to do by enforcing the laws in the Constitution, because year after year after year after year, they have not called for nor seen to it that a call was made for all the elders of the organization. Credentials or not, the law says they were supposed to be there. So how did that slip by? Because the credentials committee is made up of men on the general council. And what we showed you in the supreme laws is that they are all protecting one another. Now, as a delegate, your job is to come into that door meaning to do business, not meaning to just fall into position and whatever they say, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. I'm reading to you so that you understand that the law says that you are responsible and you can be held liable for decisions being made that go forward in our organization, just like others already have, that are going to be deemed unlawful. If you are aware of laws that have been made and they're unlawful, then you can treat that as null and void, which is why I have said the Constitution of 24, 23, 22 is null and void. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. But that's what the law says. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. There's been quite a few people asking, and what I had intended to do before, when I gave a time limit to the General Assembly Secretary, a few days later, I learned that those cutbacks that many of you are already aware of, if not all of you, regarding various offices and agencies around the country. Two of those offices that has individuals in it that I'm aware of took a major hit and got cutbacks. So what could have happened already has not yet happened, because they're dealing with a workload and it's just a skeleton crew. So until they knock out what they have to knock out, which was priority, before I come along, well, I don't know how much time that is. And because it's so few and they're doing so much, they can't really say how much time that is. That said, if I get a phone call, anytime up until the General Assembly, that may change a whole lot of things. I'm not banking on that because the situation is dire. It's a lot of stuff that they're doing. And I could be surprised. So my point to you is this. Individuals that look into matters of importance that has not gone the way that they should, if they find something that's out of line, then they pull that thing and they start looking into it. The individuals that pass those laws, you saying, well, I was not aware, I didn't know, won't work. It's just like driving on the highway and a police officer pull you over for speeding. You saying, well, I didn't see the speed limit. That's not going to work. The speed limit signs are posted all along the highway. And if you are not paying attention and you happen to have missed one, that's on you. You're still going to get penalized. Delegates can be held responsible and liable for unlawful deeds being committed in these meetings because they are official meetings. And if anything happens, the documents from these meetings will be will be called upon so that they can be used as evidence. That works through a subpoena. And yes, our minutes can be subpoenaed to be used as evidence. Now, here's your biggest problem. Every single year, so far, the delegates, they go along with people in the General Assembly saying, how many of y'all want to waive the reading of the minutes? And they're waived. Question: how do you know what business you should be talking about if you got all these new people in here because the same people are not there year in and year out? Every single year you got different people in the General Assembly, different ones. And that's why there's an orientation, because they're supposed to be making the members aware of what I'm telling you now, what your job is, who you're representing, what you're there for, what your obligations are. The information at hand, those 3-4 hours that you've been waiting all these years, those are the 3 and 4 hours that you could have been discussing and talking about any information that you needed to talk about so that you would be prepared and ready to make an educated decision if you need to vote on anything. But if you're voting on things and you don't know anything whatsoever, then that decision is not an educated decision, and you can be held liable for voting on things that you don't understand, especially if those things are unlawful. And I'm telling you, we have many unlawful rules and amendments in our Constitution. Not only should the board member attend the board meetings, I've read that part. Board members who do not attend meetings are bound by the actions taken at those meetings and will be held responsible if any such actions are deemed negligent. I'll hold this up so that you all can take a picture. You can and will be held responsible by a court of law. So far, things have been okay. But we should all know by now that things are not anywhere near okay. And you don't want these matters to go and fall into the hands of local law enforcement for them to find things that should not be. Because any law, any rule, any procedure or policy, they all must be in compliance with local laws, state laws, and federal laws. You can't make a law that contradicts any of those laws. They all have to be compliant to those laws. And every member must be compliant to those laws, starting with the organization's laws. All of us must comply with the laws, rules, and regulations of the organization of which we're part of. And as delegates, remember I said before, all of us are on equal ground. And nobody's role is supposed to come into that meeting. No one. A president of a company. So what? You're a president. When you come in here, you're nothing more than a board member. If you're a CEO, so what? You're a CEO. When you come in here, you're nothing more than a board member. Even the chairman of the board holds the most power of the board. The CEO does not tell the chairman of the board what to do. The CEO does not tell the board what to do. Be informed. Monitor the activities of the association and exercise independent judgment. You exercise your own judgment for everything. You don't go to a board meeting intent and set on, well, I'm going to just go along with everybody else and whatever they do, I'm going to do. No, a board member is supposed to be independently thinking. You stand on your own 2 feet and speak your own mind and have your own thoughts because you are there to help direct for the benefit of the people of which you serve. Board members must take the time to become informed and base decisions on their own independent judgment and the best interests of the association. If a board member does not feel adequately informed, the board member must ensure that he or she has an adequate flow of information and should ask for clarification if necessary. If you don't understand something, it is your responsibility, it is your absolute obligation to stop, raise your hand, and get clarification on what's about to be done, what's about to be said, or what it is that you're talking about. These are laws and rules that will impact everybody in the organization. And you need to understand it. Proposals must be understood so that they can be talked about in order to determine whether or not it's going to benefit the organization or whether or not it's going to hurt or cripple the organization. Now, how can a proposal come forward and be voted on if the members never, ever talked about it? If they knew nothing about it? How can the proposals come through the General Assembly if it did not go through the proper proposal procedures or the process? Now we see that this is what's been going on. And these things said plainly for all of us to understand is what it is that I've been talking about that our leaders has been doing. Clearly violating the laws of the organization / the Constitution. Let's continue. Board members should be inquisitive and regularly obtain reports and other information that might help detect mismanagement, illegality, or other improprieties. Board members should ensure through national office staff that the association complies with the law, including health and safety standards, mandatory insurance coverage, and the tax laws. That's a huge, big, gigantic, enormous ordeal. We have individuals that have no knowledge of what's going on with the cafeterias and the kitchens. We have individuals that have no knowledge with what's going on with the elevators for those congregations that have elevators. Anytime the city sends people in order to inspect something or regulate something or to look at something to make sure it's up to date or up to code, you need to make sure that you know about those things. Board members should independently evaluate the position taken by any other board member, the association's senior management and staff, or any outside expert. Every board member should independently evaluate the position that anybody takes. In other words, anybody has the right to stop the meeting, ask questions. I need to know. And this is why whenever one person's hand go up and say, I oppose the waiving of the reading of the minutes are supposed to be brought out and read. You're not supposed to spend 15, 20, 30 minutes talking to that individual about why they want to hear the minutes. Every single week, whenever we had meetings, I want to hear the minutes. Boom, you start reading. General Assembly, I want to hear the minutes. Got to be 40-minute dialogue and then end up not reading it. That's because there's many things that they've been hiding, and they don't want the delegates of the General Assembly to hear it because they're going to bring it up so that they can discuss it, probably even resolve it. This is the issue right now at hand. These issues that we're talking about, the violations of our leaders, can easily be brought forward just by revisiting the minutes. The minutes of 2024 is going to be asked. The minutes of 2023 is going to be asked. All of these things are supposed to be transparent. The order of a meeting does not change. And no one gets to add rules, make up rules, bend rules, change rules at a whim. No CEO has the right or the authority to make up rules on the spot that the board of directors must comply by. No CEO makes up rules for the organization to go by. The moment a CEO ever does that outside is the week that they can expect to be terminated if the board of directors does not like that rule that was made. I showed a video of a clip from Meet Joe Black, a movie called Meet Joe Black, where a CEO walks into a board meeting that he didn't set up. They were already there waiting for him. Why? Because that's the power of the board. They can call a meeting anytime they want, have a special session, a special meeting. And that's what the trial of the bishop is. If it's not that annual meeting, when they call it, it's called a special session. We're here to deal with special business. The board can get together and just vote them out. And that's why I showed that clip. They didn't have to have an investigation. They didn't have to interrogate. They asked a few questions, but if they did not like what he did, they could have brought him in there and let him know, we noticed what you did. We don't like what you did. We don't like the outcome of what you did. So we brought you here so that we can take a vote to have you terminated. And if the board decides to go that route, it is well within their rights. What am I saying? I'm saying that one person does not have the authority, not legally, to make up rules on the spot that everybody's got to comply with, to change things at a whim. What am I talking about? Well, there were additional rules made that the houses had to go by. And we've had houses that were having meetings during the week when the congregations didn't even know. Not everyone in the congregations. We've had pastors that were setting up meetings outside of the norms. These are official complaints. It shows guilt on behalf of individuals that was complicit in doing these things. These individuals that carried out those instructions. Board members should be objective and independent. Remember that a board member's duty is to the nonprofit, it's to the people, and not to any person or constituency. Meaning, the board member's duty is to first and foremost look out for the organization. And looking out for the organization, they're going to make decisions in the best interest of the people that put them there. The people everywhere make up the organization. Now, how does that differ from what we just, how does that not differ from what we just read? It sounded like here that the board member's duty is to the organization and not to the people. It didn't say that. It said, remember that a board member's duty is to the nonprofit. It's to the organization and not to any person, singular, or constituency, singular. It's not to one person. The board does not come together to benefit one person. The General Assembly does not come together to benefit one person. In our organization, we've been coming together year after year after year after year after year to benefit only one person, and that is unlawful. The CEO, the bishop, does not have the authority to come in and preside over. They don't have the authority to come in and have rule over the General Assembly. This is backwards. And the law says it's backwards. And the law says he can't do it. Now, I've gone way out of my way to try to make sure that everybody understands this process, because this year, everybody has had the opportunity to understand what's really going on behind those closed doors and how they've been taking advantage of you because they've been keeping everyone ignorant of how the law works and what the law says. This year should be a complete difference. That said, one more. Create a record of the decision-making process demonstrating reasoned decisions. Board actions are usually questioned well after the fact. What a board does, many times questions come up later. And that's the importance of the minutes, because we only get together one time a year. Obviously, the minutes should be read every year without question. Now, they keep saying, for the sake of time, we don't want to read the minutes. But what happened with the 3.5 to 4 hours that everybody was just waiting? And then when the bishop arrives, now we got to rush through everything. That's a part of the show. It's to give the impression that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're carrying out your duties and obligations. The problem is you're not. This is how they've been able to get away with it year after year after year. Board actions are usually questioned well after the fact, whatever the action is. I questioned the act that took place the year prior to my being in the General Assembly in 2023. I wanted to know what happened last year. I asked, let me hear the minutes. I opposed the waiving of the reading of the minutes. Unlawfully, I was told I'm not going to hear the minutes. And no problem. I just needed everybody else to see it. All of the things that happened on that day were illegal. All these records, you have seen that I have copies and records and evidence. The things that have went into the constitutions, illegal. The way that the people have been kept in the dark, illegal. Going into the General Assembly this year, it should be the most busiest and the most prominent General Assembly in the history of the House of Prayer. It should be the most productive. It should be the most beneficial. If board members proving satisfaction of the duty of care is easy if the members of the board can present detailed minutes of each committee and board meeting with all reports, recommendations, and factual data attached, demonstrating that the board made reasoned decisions. That's the purpose of the minutes. So that you can see and hear that those decisions that were made were reasonable, that they were rational, and most importantly, that they were legal. By pushing it through, not having discussions, not letting the people listen to the minutes, all of these things are unlawful. All of these things can be called into question. All of these things can be examined, and all of these things will be judged as unlawful. Therefore, these constitutions are null and void. Promote open debate and record dissent. Passive board members may be judged solely on their vote, while active board members can explain or support the basis of their vote if the minutes reflect their views. If a board what that means is if there's something where there's a disagreement about whatever, then you get to have dialogue about your view, about your perception, about where you stand and why you believe this while others believe that. It is so that we can talk about the difference. This is what I've been talking. We need to learn to talk. We need to learn to go over differences. We need to learn to go over disagreements. It doesn't matter that you're disagreeing. It doesn't matter that I'm disagreeing. It doesn't matter. I could be wrong with many, many things. And when you throw information out there, the hope is that other people who hear it and they know that you're wrong will speak up so they can correct it. And we all get better. That's the point. To put the information out there. But if we're all holding on to information and nobody's talking to anybody about disagreements, then how can we help one another? That is the purpose of having what is called a productive meeting. In productive meetings, people disagree all the time. And they don't walk out having chips on their shoulder because Sue Ellen didn't like my idea. Everybody walks out happy because our disagreements allowed us to be able to come to an agreement. But we can't come to an agreement with our disagreement if we don't communicate, if we don't listen to one another, if we don't have dialogue. So what? I disagree with you. So what? You disagree with me. So what? We're still brothers and sisters. We're still supposed to be here for one another. We're still supposed to be loving one another. I'm still supposed to look out for your best interests. It doesn't matter that you disagree with me. It doesn't matter that we had a knockout, drag-out debate on the floor in a meeting. That's what the meeting is for. And then when it's all said and done, everybody has heard everyone's input, going to put it to a vote. How many of you agree with Bob? How many of you agree with Terrence? And if Terrence wins the number of votes, Bob isn't supposed to get upset. Just present your information better next time. But you're still supposed to go along with the team because we're a team. That's why the point guard gets a whole lot of attention in basketball. That's why the quarterback gets a lot of clout in football. He's the one making the decisions, the final decision in the play. You all might come to the huddle and he may say, I'm going to pass it to number 43. And he's going to run it up and fake and lob it to number 18. But if the opposing team is coming and I can't get it to number 43, I might run another 15 yards and then down the ball. So I can go from third down to first down. I've gotten us closer to the goal. Everybody's happy. It didn't go the way it was planned, but we made progress. Sometimes if the quarterback mess up, fumble the ball, everybody's angry with him because you have help. You can't do it by yourself is the point that I'm making. That's why we have what's called a team. No team will survive if every team is out for himself, trying to get the spotlight. Every team player. It's not a team. Let me wrap this up. If a board member disagrees with an action proposed at a meeting, the board member should state his disagreement and vote against the action, or have the board member's dissent entered in the minutes of the meeting. If a board member becomes aware of illegal activity, the board member must bring it to the attention of the appropriate executive or the full board. I became aware of illegal activity and that was not corrected. My intent was to bring it to individuals that's in positions of authority. I went to people in positions individually. Nobody did anything. And individuals seem to think that I'm causing problems. You heard the recording in the last video. Some people stand in the house so they can make trouble. An individual who is bringing to the attention of everybody that there's illegal activity going on, they're not bringing trouble. They're saving everybody from trouble. And if everybody's trying to save the one who's doing illegal activity, then we really got a problem on our hands. Because everyone has become unethical. There's something called a board of ethics for a reason. Whenever you're being called upon because you got caught doing something, many times before something even goes before an investigative board or before a court hearing, they'll take the matter before a board of ethics and they'll listen to the information. And if they agree, yes, that was unethical, then they may be able to offer remedy and fix the problem, or they'll pass it up for the problem to be looked into further and dealt with. If not, other people can be held legally accountable. Fines and jail time. This is serious. It's bigger than us coming to sit inside of a room and talk to one another. This is dealing with local, state, and federal laws that are enforced to make sure that people in the public are not taking advantage of the public and deceiving the public and robbing the public. This is why we read every single wheat is read. Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. And there's some people in nonprofits not only robbing the IRS, but they're also robbing the entire nation. That is not only a big deal, it is illegal. And there are serious consequences. So, delegates, we need to understand, if the illegal activity is not corrected, the board member should carefully consider his or her next steps and obligations to the corporation. Also, the board member may have legal obligations to disclose the matter to select government ethics and licensing authorities. If you know that there's illegal activity taking place, if a meeting is not conducted properly, if people are being put off in a meeting and not allowed to speak, that's not a nothing issue. That is a major issue. Because when people are not allowed to speak in a board meeting, then that means that people have things to cover up. And that's a red flag. This is what you hear, flag on the play. Delegates, pay attention to this information so that you can take notes and prepare yourself further as you get ready to go into the General Assembly in 3 weeks from now. A lot of effort is being made to keep things hidden and to keep things from coming out into the open. I will be presenting more information like this as we go forward. And until the next time, have a good night, and I'll see you in the next video.